Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, my name is Samantha, and this is On the Hill, where we talk all things biblical womanhood, homemaking, femininity, inner healing, and just overall intentional living. And I'm excited about this video and the videos to come because we're going to do a small series on cycle syncing. You probably have heard other people talk about it. You have heard me talk about it on social media if you follow me there. But we're going to talk about what is cycle syncing, what are these different phases that everyone is talking about, what should you be doing during these different phases, and how you can learn and grow in the area of cycle syncing to really just optimize your life in a better way as it pertains to your nutrition, your fitness, your self-care, your productivity, and all the things. So let's get into it. So if you're like me, then growing up, you probably heard of the term your menstrual cycle, right? And most of us thought that your menstrual cycle is just that time every month for 3, 5, 7 days, however long it is for you, where you bleed, right? That's what a lot of us thought. At least that's what I thought for a long time. In fact, your menstrual cycle encompasses 4 phases that you will experience as a woman throughout the month, right? So it's not just the 3, 5, or 7 days where you bleed every month. There are 4 phases in a woman's menstrual cycle, one of them being her period, again, that you will experience throughout the month or around 28 days, right? So let's talk about those 4 phases. And again, what is cycle syncing and why is it important? So the 4 phases are your menstrual, right? So your menstrual is all 4 phases, but when you kind of break it down into the 4 phases, you can also call your period your menstrual, or you can call it your period or your time of bleed, whatever it is you want to call it, right? So your period, your follicular phase, the ovulatory phase, and then your luteal phase. So we're going to have a series where we go through each of these phases, but just as an overview, those are the 4 phases that you will experience over the span of about 28 days. So cycle syncing is the understanding of these 4 phases, right? Understanding that as women, in these different phases throughout the month, you're going to experience a lot of fluctuations, right? So let me help any of my sisters that are like, okay, this is gonna make a little sense, right? Because for a lot of us, you will notice that there are some times of the month where you are hungrier than others. There are times of the month maybe where you are craving chocolate. There are times of the month where you don't want to do anything. You're like, don't even look at me. There are other times of the month where you feel real good about yourself and you're on 100, right? Like it kind of just seems like you're up and down and up and down and up and down, right? And that is because we have a menstrual cycle. We operate on what is called an infradian rhythm. So you probably have heard of the term circadian rhythm. Circadian rhythm is primarily what men operate on. It's a 24-day cycle, right? So wake up, they can do the same thing every day. They go to sleep, right? And we have the circadian rhythm as well, right? Like we operate on that circadian rhythm as well, but it's not our primary rhythm that we operate on, right? It is the primary rhythm that a man operates on. Women operate on what's called an infradian rhythm, right? So again, we still have a circadian rhythm, but we primarily operate on an infradian rhythm, meaning that over the span of about 28 days, you will experience about 4 phases, y'all, right? And I want to emphasize that because I hope this gives some grace and compassion for ladies that, like myself, would beat yourself up. Like, I'm a high performer. I'm really big on getting things done, being productive, getting up at 4 a.m., doing all of the things, right? But not even understanding that, like, that is not always the healthiest thing, right? Like, it is normal. It is natural for me to have fluctuations throughout the month because that's how the Father created me. Right? And so when we actually say, like, I am not a man and I'm not created to do what a man does, literally down to our DNA, down to our hormones, we were not created to function like a man. We were not created to wake up and do the same thing every day, feel the same way every day. Like, that's not in our nature. It's not who we are. Again, we are feminine beings. We are women. We have what's called an infradian rhythm, or we operate primarily on an infradian rhythm, meaning, again, throughout the month, over the span of about 28 days, it is very normal for you to experience fluctuations in your mood, in your libido, in your energy levels, in your nutrition, right? Like, it is completely normal. It is completely normal. So for those of us, because this is me too, that have, like, you beat yourself up because you're like, man, I was so productive last week and then this week I don't want to do anything. It's probably because you're in one of those phases throughout the month where your hormones have plummeted. They're declining. Therefore, it shows up as you wanting to isolate a little bit more. It shows up as you wanting to rest more. You don't have as much energy to do the things that you want to do, or even the things that you do throughout the month, because you are in a different phase of your cycle. Cycle syncing is an awareness of those 4 phases. It's understanding how you respond to those 4 phases, and then adjusting your nutrition, your productivity levels, your self-care, your workouts with your cycle in mind, right? So I talk about in a lot of my videos how a lot of us just live on autopilot. We're on autopilot. We do all of the things that we know to do. We're showing up. We're doing what we need to do to survive, but we're not really thriving, right? And cycle syncing is one of those things that allows us to reconnect with ourselves as women, as feminine women. It allows us to be more self-aware of our body, our hormones, so that we're able to show up and support our body in a way where we are working with it and not against it, right? So again, me, for a long time, I was a 4 a.m. girl, waking up at 4 a.m., trying to do all of the things. Mind you, I was doing this every day, all day, except for the Sabbath, because y'all know I don't work on the Sabbath, right? But I was doing this, waking up at 4 a.m. every day, all day. And even in that time where I was on my period, where I really should have been resting, I should have been sleeping in if I could, I was still hitting it, 4 a.m., 4 a.m., 4 a.m., pushing myself to the max. And what I was doing in that moment was I was working against my body and its natural rhythm. I was working against my hormones and not in unity with it, right? And when we work against something rather than with it, other things start to manifest itself. This is where we have issues around anxiety and depression, where we have gut health, where we have moods that are fluctuating in a very unhealthy manner. It's because a lot of us are not working in tune with our bodies. A lot of us aren't even aware of our bodies. We're not even aware of this information to be in tune with it, right? But again, when you have understanding of cycle syncing and you begin to make small changes in your life, right? Like, it's not a matter of you wake up tomorrow and all of a sudden you just change your whole diet, or you change your whole workout plan, or you change whatever it is, right? It's small changes. First, it's just knowledge and understanding, right? The Bible says that my people perish for a lack of knowledge. So some of us don't even have the knowledge. That's the whole point of this series, is to educate you on what is cycle syncing, and then to help you make small changes. So again, you are able to align your lifestyle with the phases of your cycle, your menstrual cycle being the 4 phases that you will experience over the span of 28 days. So again, 4 phases: the menstrual, follicular, ovulatory, and luteal, right? We're going to get into what those 4 phases are and how you should approach it. But this is kind of just an intro to this series so you understand what is cycle syncing. And my hope again is that you receive a little grace, like, okay, so there's a reason why things fluctuate for me a lot. Right? There's a reason. And it's interesting. I was telling someone, I think it was one of my coaching clients, I was like, some of us, I feel like, even for myself, I was like, man, like, there was a time where I was like, I think I struggle with depression. Now, granted, I have had run-ins with postpartum depression. I'm not taking away from that. But there were times outside of postpartum where I would just, every month, I would find myself kind of plummeting. And I felt like I was in a lower place than other times throughout the month, right? And I thought it was so interesting, especially as I started to learn about cycle syncing. I was like, it's so interesting, because I wonder how many people thought that they were struggling with depression. And it wasn't really depression. It was their luteal phase, because luteal phase is right before your menstrual, right before your period. So if you notice, that's a time where you get a little more moody, you're a little bit more irritable, right? Because your body is preparing for your period, right? And a lot of us probably thought we were depressed. And I thought about that thing. I said, girl, you probably weren't even depressed. You probably were just in your luteal phase the whole time, right? And so it's so interesting how we can misdiagnose, or we have misinformation because we don't understand the full scope of our bodies, and we don't have full awareness of who we are as women, and just how our bodies are different from men. Again, some of us probably were comparing ourselves to our counterparts, and like, we weren't showing up how they show up, or we were, comparing and putting ourselves down, when in fact we shouldn't be comparing ourselves to men. We shouldn't be comparing, because we are literally, in our DNA, in our hormones, like, we are 2 different people. Literally, down to the wire, we are 2 different people. We do things differently. We show up different. Like, we are wired differently. And so it makes sense that we operate in a different way, right? So my hope is, again, that you are just like, okay, wow, like, this makes sense. This makes sense. And I hope you guys are excited for the series. One of the things that I am putting out is, by the time of this video, I don't know if it will be launched, but maybe it will be. If it is, it's in the description box, is a cycle syncing ebook. It's one-on-one for beginners that are new to cycle syncing. It's going to go more in depth than this series on YouTube is, but it's really going to go into a little bit more of the science behind what's happening in your body. Again, it's going to talk about the different phases, what you should be doing. It's going to give you journal prompts for each phase. It's going to give you some recommendations on foods, workouts, all of the things that you can be doing to support yourself and to support your body as you experience the fluctuations throughout the month of your menstrual cycle. So I will link that below. I'm pretty sure it's going to be out by the time this video goes out, but check the description box and I want you to look into the ebook. And not only is there going to be an ebook, but there is going to be a tracker. And this tracker is going to help you really track what is happening throughout the different phases of your cycle. It's one thing to have knowledge and understanding of something. It's another thing to actually implement the practices and the things necessary to optimize those different phases of your cycle, right? So the tracker is going to help you track what is happening during your period, what's happening during the luteal phase, what's happening during your follicular or ovulatory phase. And so not only are you aware of what happens and how your body responds to those different phases, but it helps you track. So maybe next month when that phase is coming up, you can look back at the last month and say, okay, well, last month, this is how the follicular phase went. And these are some of the things that I did and it actually worked or it didn't work. So let me implement some of these things next month or stay away from some things next month or in the future because you've been tracking and because you are aware again of your body and how your body responds to these different phases, and you have the understanding and insight and the practical tools to make sure that you are supporting your body in the best way possible. So check out the description box. It's going to have the link in there with all the information for the ebook and the tracker. If you have any questions, drop it in the comment section, and I hope you guys are excited for the other videos that are coming up in this series. Please like, subscribe, and share this video with another sister that could utilize some information about cycle syncing.